Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, and it is so hot in this room. You can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage, and catching me where I'm live. We're gonna rapid fire through a number of news items before getting to the main topic, so strap in and let's go. But in the meantime, let me know how you're handling this current season, whether you're doing like raids or prey or delves. Let me know what your experience is like. Season 1 began this week for most folks, but not for Mythic Plus World, who has one more week of seething before the game really opens up. With it came this weekly quest here that can be completed one time across the warband whenever it's available. It was made controversial because, oh my god, you're forced to participate in housing content to get player power in the form of crests. At least that's what people were saying earlier. Now that it's out though, as it usually turns out, the news is far worse than what we do in practice. Most gamers who know they'll eventually hit crest caps their own way for any of these crests, they're going to instead pick up the augment runes for gold or moral to spend on cosmetics, and for those who don't otherwise care, they're not going to bother with this quest at all. On the 1205 front, a new build released with the biggest highlight being the new Demon Hunter customization with respect to the Devourer spec. There's no more confusion with the green fell eyes, they can now sport void blue eyes of various glows. And while I only glossed on this a bit last week, there are a lot of data mined decor assets discovered, and while it remains to be seen if or when these will appear, I want to spotlight these rocks reminiscent of Durotar, along with more trees and greens from the Kalimdor region. It tells me that at some point, we may see additions to neighborhood vendors. Now, some would speculate, and I don't blame them, that maybe these items won't be purchased with gold, but something more punishing like Voidlight Marl or some, new zone currency or even Hearthsteel. Given what we already spend on rocks and greens though, the narrative I'm pushing is these are meant to enhance the initial offering of decor from neighborhoods to new players, so folks have the accessibility to make the kind of biome that suits their needs. A round of bans were issued against folks who were able to buy extra knowledge point skill books and get deeper into mastering certain profession specializations faster than normal. While affected characters also had their specialization points reset, commenters are blasting Blizzard for only issuing a 7-day ban. Although meanwhile, those of us who just rolled hyper-specialized alts to achieve the same effect, they're like, oh, so what happened? I mean, they couldn't really see behind all the gold they were making normally. One of the biggest complaints coming out this week, and is sure to get even worse if left untouched, is coming from healers and, raiders basically, who are struggling to deal with dispellable debuffs. At least one of these debuffs are unable to easily identify at all, which seems to have been a bug that may have been fixed or at least has been adjusted. The additional confusion comes from being overwhelmed with too many icons and raid frames to easily identify the target to cleanse, and without add-on support to fine-tune a blacklist of debuffs to ignore or whitelist debuffs to make more prominent, naturally, folks are frustrated over Blizzard creating this problem. I admit I'm a bit out of touch on this though, and this is a great opportunity to roast my ignorance. I figure it's pretty easy to see dispellable debuffs because a little icon appears to highlight hey, this character has a thing you can cleanse, and that's kind of it. And otherwise the in-game settings let you highlight the frame and only show debuffs that you can dispel. Now, of course, I can foresee some other issues where folks are taking really heavy damage over time that can't really be dispelled, and maybe that's a bit more difficult to identify, but I mostly want to open the floor and talk about debuffs where the game is currently coming up short. The secret of the Felcycle has suddenly picked up again with the start of the season, apparently by accident, according to a Wowhead article, which I'll link below. In it is also the quick guide on what this secret is in the first place, as well as the latest development. So far, it hasn't led to anything conclusive or final like another mount, so you can always hold off until those really crazy secret finder people till they figure it all out for us. Now we gotta talk about delves in the new season, because early in the week, lots of folks reacted to the Delve Hall of Fame, where gamers raced to be the first of 4,000 people in their region to defeat Nullius, the Delve Menaces, on its hardest difficulty. A little around 12 hours after US Realms went live, the list filled up, much to the discomfort of gamers who felt left out. Now, as a big Delve fan myself and a big supporter of the system, as well as a professional fence walker when it comes to commentary, of course I have a lot of mixed thoughts. Now, I do like what they did here. I think there can be improvements and changes too. I want to hear yours as well, of course, but I guess I'll go first because you know. I'm not so surprised at all Blizzard decided to make a bit of a race out of all this because, well, gamers kind of do this to themselves regardless. Not all of them, but quite a few do. It's not unlike those who grind for Keystone Hero or Legend in like the first week, or get ahead of the curve and Gladiator out of the way really fast, or maybe they're just doing it fast for the glory, or maybe they like to race to run out of things to do. In the case of Dells, being on this short list of 4,000 players means having a title for having done it. The fight itself, I want to say it's not that bad. Now, of course, I play as a tank, so nothing is ever that bad, but mechanically, the Nullius encounter is much more forgiving than the previous Kaiveza encounter, which was nothing but one-shots. It's not as gimmicky as the Underpin, and it doesn't have the hard DPS check that Zekfir had. Not to say there are no issues, though. I think that after ironing out the encounter mechanics across the specializations, it's going to be a very doable fight that can be solved with gear, for the most part, over the course of the season. Now, that's all I have to say about the fight and the encounter. Like, I want to spotlight the prestige around the Hall of Fame and the idea, or the offense, of prestige in Delves overall. Now, personally, as in, just my opinion, having any sort of acknowledgement like this, it's very cool. I do like scoring that seasonal feat of strength for clearing this sort of stuff before the season ends, which is still a thing, by the way. I take a certain pride in succeeding at solo content, and, something like this, it's right up my alley. I didn't exactly prepare for it the way others likely did, like gearing up pretty hard during the preseason or powering up Valera's level as much as I could and so on and so forth. So try as I did, and even after spending I think I spent about 100,000 gold or so on enchants and consumables, I still only really had a few hours left to give it a go before the list filled up, and I fell short. I didn't make it, which was kind of a bummer. The window closed, but I hope to get the kill before this coming reset for other reasons I'll share a bit later. I later heard reports of how it sounded like Tangs had the advantage going into this race, which is, hey, that's typical, but there were some exploity kind of things happening with certain trinkets. I don't know the details, but it's way too late for that to matter now. Those sorts of imbalances and bugs, they do definitely spoil the idea of a race, where folks out there, they might love playing their certain spec or other, which might have had no chance of making the list. Now, speaking for me, I still felt a certain kind of satisfaction with the experience, and I want Blizzard to continue doing something like this, but not exactly like this because, there are some obvious problems. The biggest one being this kind of thing can't be balanced. The nature of solo content, when we have so many specs and 3 roles, there's no way to strike a very perfect balance. And most of the time, survivability, which is what tanks obviously excel at, that wins out over everything else. Attempting to counterbalance that with one-shot tank mechanics is only the start of a really long and painful journey of whack-a-mole balance due to all the different factors that go into WoW combat. My feedback is to instead lean away from the whole limited prestige and towards a more permanent acknowledgement of what we did, something a bit more dressed up than just an achievement. Now, that can come in the form of a leaderboard, which tracked a few things like, well, obviously, whoever defeated the Delve boss first, or, the earliest. But let's not limit it to just the first 4,000 people, let's just have it run for the entire season. So if my third alt happens to do this and they placed like 90,000 or something, hey, cool. I want to be able to go to a site and go to the leaderboard and find my character. And also, let's have the leaderboard sort by class and spec. So maybe I didn't place so high overall, but maybe I was one of the top holy priests in the region. So better tracking that gives a more precise context. And finally, I think we should have a piece of the core to bring home, right? Like right now we get a mount, which is nice and all, but it's 2026 and we get trophies for prey targets, we get trophies for raids, and so why not a trophy for the Delve boss? It'll look the same for everyone. That's kind of what I'm thinking in my head, whether they were first in the region or if they got it years later after the season's over. However, I think it would be really cool if we can click on this trophy and it would prominently display our ranking like right there in game, like in front of the trophy or something. A system like this actually exists already. Those who took part in Dastardly Duos picked up this podium toy. When used and you hop on it, it reveals stats about the character you're currently on. With some tracking and a few tweaks to apply to this trophy, we can now have this special kind of decor that, yes, a lot of people will have the actual skin of it, but with a click, it'll show off precisely what that trophy means to them. Now, I know that prestige is kind of a tricky topic in the World of Warcraft space. To say prestige is to also bring up the subject of the fear of missing out, or FOMO. Personally, I feel it is a great thing to have, as long as it doesn't cause someone to have like this definitive advantage over others. And to a certain extent, it would be great if it didn't cause someone else distress, which is hard because FOMO is a very personal, a very individual thing anyway. Now, like I said, I wanted to be in that first 4,000 people. I blew a ton of gold in the attempt, and unfortunately I failed. Now for me, I can still step back and remind myself, hey, you know what, this is a video game, and part of the fun and the glory is to, well, sometimes fail, and I can be a good sport about it. But me saying that and kind of projecting that probably offended a few folks out there just right now. Now there is something else about this boss. Defeating it will give you a bag of goodies, including crests, and by that I mean myth level crests that don't count towards the weekly season cap. Now this has been reported by Wowhead and corroborated by a number of commenters, but I'm not sure if this bag appears if the boss is defeated with like multiple people or in a group, or if this bag will drop every week. Like, I have a feeling that this is a one-time gimme and that's it. I just want to make sure that I don't know this for sure yet. And for the sake of conversation, I'm going to react as if this can be repeated every week because, well, that conversation might be fun. I mentioned the whole thing about prestige and FOMO and distress just earlier. I think there's a line to cross, and I feel like these uncapped crests would be a step across that line. It's not a particularly big step, but let me explain. Myth Crest let us upgrade Myth gear that we've earned, and also make the highest level crafted gear. I think we need like 80 to make one. Naturally, those who earn it will want as much of it as they can as soon as possible. The nature of seasonal currencies like crests, they're designed in a way that even if we don't earn ourselves the maximum possible in a given week, we can always catch up later in the season. But this bag abandons that philosophy. There are 30 myth crests that now we can miss out on if we don't defeat this delve boss, and that number can stack and can keep going up by 30 each week. It's not just that though. If the delve boss is a source of crests outside the cap, suddenly there's like this big spotlight on this delve boss thing, and anyone who's super invested into maxing out their gear, they're going to feel forced to run this every week. Now, as I said, this is a pretty chill encounter compared to previous bosses. It's very solvable with better gear and minimum tactics. But we're going to see a narrative from players in the space groaning over the delve boss chore that they have to commit to until they're done gearing. And this is different from other activities like the lower level delves and prey and so on, where the rewards, they're something that gamers will eventually graduate from. Myth crests, though, those are the best crests, and they'll stay relevant until the best gear in the season is fully upgraded or crafted. Now, of course, some folks are totally good with that. It's like, hey, it's more crests, there are more things for me to do, and I feel rewarded for, playing more of the game. I just can't shake the idea, though, that some top gamers are going to feel punished feeling forced to run this every week, multiplied by the number of alts they care about to maintain this sense of staying, quote, caught up on the uncapped crests. And this doesn't even help the primary delve audience, who look at the delve boss and the myth crest as something to aspire to, and they're unlikely to ever hit that myth cap. A lot of the conversation will sail over these people's heads, which is why I have, again, big doubts that this will be more than a one-time thing. Otherwise, my take would be to make these crests do in fact count towards the season cap. Like the cap exists for a reason, and it'd be weird to have this exception that applies mostly to just top gamers. For now though, of course, it's just a discussion, and I'm interested to hear what you gotta say. That's the show, and now that we're in the whole hubbub of the season, I'm starting to observe how it feels to have player housing as part of the WoW routine. Now, speaking for me, predictably, I'm impacted, and I haven't been doing a lot of my own housing stuff with my time split between like all the season things and visiting other people's houses. But dude, this week featured some absolute bangers, and we've already got a full queue ready for next week. It's kind of crazy seeing some of these level 9 houses with full budgets resulting in visits that pretty easily take like 25 to 30 minutes to really check out and appreciate. And that's why, for those who are wondering why I'm only doing like 10 visits on Wednesdays and Thursdays only, but once things settle down a bit, I'll be back to doing 15 a week across the 3 days. It goes to show the way housing is settling in as an endgame activity that's independent of item level and other progression. Fetching that one raid trophy, like, hey, that's cool, but it's just one thing, as we use any number of decor throughout the World of Warcraft to dress the rest of our place. It's that open-endedness that keeps the visits fresh each time we walk into a new place. And even if you're not around to watch and react live with us, you can always visit the Around Azeroth channel to see previous live streams, and almost every day, visits from the archive are being carved out and made viewable for you anytime. Let's wrap things up with a big thanks to everyone on the live streams, and by the way, another Twitch drop is going to happen next Thursday afternoon, so be here so I can help you score another Miss Miracle decor. To our awesome patrons, thanks so much, and let's welcome Joshua and Tearbear for the generosity. And of course, let's not forget about you, viewer. You made it to the end, you fed the algorithm. Please like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.